Hi there! Today we're going to be learning the 3-needle bind-off for our beaded wristers. Now these wrister patterns are all going to be available, well, not this one. This one is by Donna Drakunas and it is in her new book Lithuanian Knitting, and it's beautiful. But these three here are ones that I have made up as wrister patterns, and they will be available on my website and on Ravelry soon. So look for them under Amanda Schwabe or look at aknitica.com, aknitica.com. So to start, the 3-needle bind-off, you can do it either with the right side facing out or the wrong side facing out. When you turn it inside out and do it with the beads together and the wrong side facing out, then you get this nice little indentation on your right side, because the bind-off was done on the other side, which I think looks really nice, but I also like it the other way, so really you can't go wrong. When you do it from the outside with the beads facing out after you've folded, you get a nice little ridge that kind of matches the garter ridges, and it looks really good on, because once you put it on, you really can't, you would wear it at the side of your hand anyway, where it's not so noticeable. Looks great. Okay, and then here it is again on the outside. This is just my favorite. It's simpler to do. There we go. And then here too. Ta-da! So it looks good no matter which way you choose to do it. Now let's get to the actual how of doing that. So here's your wrister. Pretend it's longer. You would want it to wrap all the way around your wrist before you bind off. And we're going to do a 3-needle bind off so that then there's no sewing. Once you have bound off, you've not only caught this edge of live stitches, you've also joined it to the cast on edge, and you have a nice little tube when you're done. So in order to do that, first we'll tuck the tail out of the way inside, and I'm going to fold it up so that the cast on edge is behind my live stitches. Okay, and in this case I have my beads facing out, so I'll have that little ridge on the outside. So what we're going to do, normally with 3-needle bind-off you would have 2 needles of live stitches just like this one, but in this case we're going to attach the live stitches to the cast on edge. So to find my first stitch in the cast on edge, well, first of all, the cast on edge are these diagonal, this little line. It almost looks like a straight line, but if you poke your needle in it, it's actually made up of stitches that lean diagonally beside each other in a nice little, almost like a twisted rope. I used the long tail cast on for my cast on, so yours may look different. But for each stitch you cast on, there should be a little loop at the bottom edge of your cast on that you can use for binding off. So to find my first one, I follow my tail from the cast on edge, and there's the first loop that I want to cast off. So let me get ready here. I'm going to put this loop on the needle beside my first stitch, and I'm going to knit them together. So this is a normal knit 2 together. Okay, it's going to be a little tight. Yeah, I didn't want to come through that time. Here we go. There. And you have 1 stitch on your needle. And then we're going to move to the next stitch in the sequence. Here it is. Now if you're not sure, pull your knitting apart a little bit so you can open things up and really see what's going on in there. Okay, we'll put that stitch on the left hand needle, and then I can knit the live stitch together with the cast on stitch. So again, knit 2 together. Now I am using my fingering weight yarn here and my teeny tiny size 0 US needles, so my stitches are pretty small. Things are pretty tight. But you can do this with any project. There, so now I have 2 stitches on my needle. I'm going to reach across in front and pull the first stitch up and over the second stitch and off the needle. And I have 1 stitch left, and 1 stitch has been bound off at the edge. Okay, and then we're going to move on to the next stitch in the series of the cast on edge. There it is. And knit 2 together. Whoops! Oh, I just pulled everything out. Hang on. Now this doesn't bother me. I'll just go back and get the stitch that fell. There's the cast on stitch that fell as well. Actually, I think I can pick that up. I split it, so I'll unsplit it. There we go. Then I'll just redo what I did. I have 2 stitches on my needle, so I'll pull it back up and over again. And then we're good to go. Alright, so moving on. Here we go. Put the next cast on stitch on. Knit 2 together. Success! There we go. Oh, it's a little split, so I'm going to fix that first. Okay, and then I'm going to pull the first stitch up and over the second stitch. And we just go on like that until all of the stitches on the needle have been worked together with all of the loops in the cast on edge. Now, if you get to the end of your cast on edge and you are a stitch short, then you have 2 choices. You could either undo your whole thing and redo them, or you could just say whatever, c'est la vie, and finish up and then bind off. Or if you have 1 stitch too many, every now and then you can skip one of those cast on stitches by accident, and then you'll have too many stitches in your knit stitches. Then when I get here, if I have 2 stitches left at the end and only 1 loop that I can find in the cast on edge, then I could put the cast on edge loop on together with those 2 stitches and knit 3 together instead of knit 2 together to finish it up. I mean, you could always rip it back and fix it up, but you don't always have to, and it doesn't really show. Alright, so you just continue on like this with the knit 2 together. It's slow work. You want to make sure you have good lighting, especially when you're using tiny yarn and tiny needles like I am. And then pass it over, and so on until the very end. And then when you get to your very last loop, when there's only 1 loop left on your needle, and all of your stitches have been worked together and you have a nice tube, then you would cut your yarn and leave a 6-inch tail for sewing in. And then you would take your last loop and give it a tug with your needle until it grows and grows and grows. Sometimes it really doesn't want to, but until it grows and grows and grows, and then the end that you cut pops out. So what happens then is half of this loop is still going through your last stitch, so it's not going to unravel. And then you're not left with an extra loop at the end. And then you would just sew in your tail on the inside of your work, and you're all done. And that is how to do a 3-needle bind off with a cast on edge. There you go. That's what it looks like.